And we go straight to that Fox News alert. The funeral for Goldberg-polin, the American hostage killed by Hamas in Gaza, will be held today at 9 a.m. Eastern Time in Israel.
Also today, President Biden returns to the White House after a 2-week-long vacation to meet with Vice President Harris in the Situation Room. Now, the two reportedly will sit down with the U.S. hostage negotiating team to discuss efforts to secure a deal to release the remaining hostages.
I mean, shouldn't they have already been working on this? In New York City, thousands gathered at a vigil last night. Remember the 6 murdered hostages found in a tunnel in Rafah over the weekend.
And this is a live look at a massive protest in Israel calling for a ceasefire and hostage release deal, as a big labor strike causes a standstill at businesses, schools, and Israel's largest airport. Trey Yingst is live in Tel Aviv. Hey, Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. Demonstrations erupted across Israel overnight after the country's health ministry announced that 6 Israeli hostages were executed in Hamas captivity. Thousands of people blocked Israel's main highway that runs through the second largest city of Tel Aviv. Clashes unfolded between police and protesters, with security forces bringing in horses and water cannons to clear the road. The demonstrators demanded that the government reach a hostage agreement and bring the remaining captives in Gaza home. Take a look. There are clear disagreements between Israeli leadership, between Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant and the country's prime minister Benjamin Netanyahu. For the people here in the streets of Tel Aviv, they are not interested in politics. They are not interested in what the government has to say unless it is bringing the hostages home.
We do know that we want a deal now because those people are supposed to be home yesterday.
The unrest about the hostages shifted to civil protests with a broad general strike announced today. Israel's international airport was on strike for 2 hours this morning, affecting incoming and outgoing flights. Other transportation is affected as well, including Jerusalem's light rail train. With frustration growing across Israel about the lack of a deal, President Biden will meet with Vice President Harris in the Situation Room later today to discuss things with the American negotiating team. Officials in Washington will look for a way to move the ceasefire talks forward, giving both Israel and Hamas an exit ramp to end the war. The uncertainty about Gaza comes as Israel launched fresh strikes against the Iran-backed group Hezbollah in southern Lebanon overnight. Now, the war inside Gaza has been ongoing for the past 332 days, and still there are no clear diplomatic efforts to end the conflict. Guys, back to you.
You know, Trey, the emotion of grief and loss is not logical. It's just, you just feel. And the reason why I put that into the context is because when you look at Benjamin Netanyahu, the IDF has already from day one tried to do hostage negotiations. They've been out there to get their people back. Do the people of Israel, the people that are protesting in the street, actually think there would be some type of deal, even when you have Sinwar that is saying that he wants to be a part of the deal, meaning that the IDF will stop all plans to go after him? Do they think there's some type of negotiation that can be reached?
Yeah, Lawrence, it's a great question. Look, the majority of the families of hostages still being held inside Gaza, more than 100 of them, some dead, some alive, do believe a deal is possible. And it really comes down to the individual. We talked with one man last night at that demonstration whose son is still being held in Gaza. He's believed to be alive. He was taken on October 7th, on Black Saturday, from the Nova Music Festival, and you could see the pain in his eyes. He didn't care how the government got there, but just that they were able to cut an agreement with Hamas and get the remaining hostages out of Gaza. There's an understanding that time is running out, and as Hamas gets backed into a corner, Israeli forces continue to push deeper into central Gaza, the last remaining Hamas stronghold there in the city of Deir al-Balah. They will start to act like caged animals. They will fight back in ways that they have not done so far. And this, as we unfortunately learned over the past 48 hours, will include executing hostages. And that is what so many of these families fear, and it's why they are in the streets of Israel again today demanding an agreement.
You know, Trey, if a deal were easy, we'd have one, right? You're negotiating with a terrorist organization. What's the biggest sticking point for both sides? What is each side holding on to that makes a deal so difficult?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Israel is not negotiating with a reasonable or rational actor. Hamas has changed their position from the beginning of these conversations. The Israelis have as well. But they say they've offered a deal. When it's not accepted, they move forward with the war and continue to push deeper into Gaza. Look, I've talked with both senior Israeli leadership, including the country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, multiple times, and senior Hamas leadership. And just last week, a senior Hamas official sent me a PowerPoint of the demands that his organization has. And the two key discussions right now that basically are the sticking points in the talks. One has to do with the Philadelphia corridor, that strip of land that sits between Egypt and Gaza. It's about the width of a football field. The Israelis want to maintain a presence there. Hamas says they're not willing to move forward with an agreement if that's the case. The other is the Nitzarim corridor. And you've seen from our reports inside Gaza, this is the supply route the Israelis cut across Gaza to the Mediterranean Sea. They want to maintain a presence there in case they need to conduct operational raids inside Gaza. These are the two sticking points that Hamas says are non-starters for their organization. But look, each and every day the goalposts are changing. The talks were taking place in Cairo, Egypt. They shifted to Doha, Qatar. And as we speak, there are still working groups trying to hammer out the details.
Trey, to that point, it seems as if when we talk about a deal, it's frankly the deal with the devil. And therefore, what does international pressure, what role does it play in Israel's part right now, saying why are we even wasting time negotiating a deal when, to your point, you are executing hostages and potentially executing more? What part does that play?
It's a great question. And look, when you step back from this situation, you remember there are American citizens being held inside the Gaza Strip by Hamas in the tunnels beneath Gaza as we speak. And so the president meeting with the vice president today in the Situation Room, but it's not enough to simply hold meetings. Solutions need to come to the surface to get these remaining hostages out of Gaza and to end the war. Because look, an ongoing conflict doesn't benefit either side. There are hostages, American citizens being held in Gaza who will die if the conflict continues. As we have seen, Hamas is now executing hostages according to the country's health ministry here. And for the Palestinian people, thousands of civilians have been killed since the October 7th massacre during the Israeli air and ground campaign against Gaza. And so the idea of diplomacy, this shuttle diplomacy that's gone back and forth, American officials, including top Biden administration officials traveling to the region, simply ferrying messages back and forth, it's no longer enough. The clock is ticking. People are dying on both sides of this conflict. And at this point, diplomacy has failed.
So far, you're right.
Great job out there, Trey.
Thank you, Trey.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.